The camera opens on a moment that will break your heart. Before you even understand why, Simon Cowell, the man whose tears are more rare than a perfect diamond, sitting at the judge's table with both hands covering his mouth, his eyes red and swollen, his shoulders shaking with sobs. That seemed to be ripped from a place so deep he didn't know it existed. Inside him, golden confetti rains down in slow motion, catching the stage lights like fragments of a shattered sunrise. And there in the center of it all is an 11-year-old Filipino boy named Marco Rivera, standing at the microphone with his younger sister's hand clutched in his left, and his grandmother weeping openly in the front row. He's just finished singing a traditional Filipino Christmas carol that nobody in the audience knew when he started, but by the end, 13 million Americans were singing along in broken Tagalog, through tears they couldn't explain. This is the audition that didn't just win a golden buzzer. It won the heart of every mother who'd ever spent Christmas away from her children, every child who'd ever waited by a window for a parent who might not make it home, and every single person who'd forgotten what Christmas magic actually looked like. When stripped of commercial glitter and reduced to its purest form, a child's voice, a mother's love, and a promise, kept across 3,000 miles, but we have to go back to understand how we got here, to the humid, narrow streets of Quezon City in the Philippines, where Marco grew up in a small, concrete house with a tin roof that sang when it rained and leaked when it poured. His mother, Maria Rivera, was a nurse who'd worked at the local clinic until the money ran out, until the bills from her husband's heart surgery piled up so high. They blocked out the sun until the only option left was the one that breaks Filipino families in half. Every single day she became an overseas Filipino worker, leaving her 2 children with their grandmother. One brutally hot July morning, with the promise that she'd be home for Christmas. That was 3 years ago. She missed the first Christmas. Because her employer in New York changed her contract, she missed the second because the flights were too expensive, and every dollar needed to go toward Marco's father's mounting medical debt. She missed the third because his father, Roberto, died alone in that small, concrete house while Maria was in a Manhattan hospital, holding the hand of someone else's father as he passed, earning the overtime pay that would cover the funeral costs. Marco was 10 when he became the man of the house, when he stopped being a child and started being a memory keeper, a promise protector, the living embodiment of everything his parents had sacrificed. The family tradition had always been caroling. Every December since Marco could remember, they would walk the barangay with a guitar that Roberto had strummed, badly but enthusiastically, singing Kumukutikutitap and Ang Pasko Ay Sumapit with neighbors who opened their doors, not just for the music but for the community that music created. Last Christmas, Marco and his 7-year-old sister Amara had walked those same streets with their grandmother Lola Corazon, who was too frail to carry a tune but knew every word by heart. They sang to remember, they sang to forget. They sang because it was the only way to feel connected. To the mother who was watching the snowfall on 5th Avenue, while they sweltered through Manila's dry season, and to the father whose work boots still sat by the door. Dusted but never moved, Marco's voice had changed that year, deepening from a child's squeak into something richer, something that made neighbors stop what they were doing and listen, something that carried the weight of grief and the wings of hope in the same breath. A Korean tourist filmed him on her phone as he sang on their front steps, and that 30-second clip traveled across the ocean, faster than any plane could carry Maria home, landing in the inbox of an AGT producer who didn't understand the words, but felt them crack something open in his chest. The call came on a Tuesday, a crackling voice from Los Angeles, asking if Marco could be in Hollywood in 2 weeks. Lola Corazon almost hung up, certain it was a scam. But the producer sent a follow-up email with official letterhead and promised flights, hotels, and most importantly, a chance for Marco to sing on a stage where his mother could watch him. Live from her employer's computer in New York, the timing was impossible. It was early November. Christmas was still weeks away, and Maria's contract didn't allow time off. But Marco heard something else in the invitation, a chance to make his mother proud, to show her that the sacrifice was worth it, to sing the carols they'd always sung, but this time loud enough to reach across the ocean and pull her home. The producer asked what he would sing, and without hesitation, Marco chose the oldest carol he knew, the one his father had taught him, before he could even pronounce all the words. Kumukutikutitap, a song about twinkling lights in the darkness, about finding beauty when you least expect it, about Christmas coming no matter how dark the year has been. Now he stands in the wings of the Dolby Theatre, and the scale of everything threatens to swallow him whole. The golden arches of the stage, the 1,000 red velvet seats, the cameras that look like robot eyes staring down from every angle, the vastness of a dream that seems too big for a boy, who shares a bedroom with his sister and grandmother. In a house where the walls are thin enough to hear neighbors arguing, he's wearing a white barong tagalog that Lola Corazon borrowed from a cousin and spent 3 days ironing until the embroidery stood out like lace against his small shoulders. His black pants are slightly too long, pulled at his shoes, that he's polished with coconut oil until they shine. Amara insisted on coming. She's never been separated from her kuya, Marco, for more than a school day, and she sits in the front row, her feet dangling above the floor, holding Lola Corazon's trembling hand. They've been warned not to make noise, to wait until after he performs. But Amara keeps waving every time Marco peeks around the curtain. Her smile so wide it could power the stage lights. The stage manager, a kind woman with a headset and a clipboard, gives him the signal. "Break a leg, sweetheart," she whispers, a phrase that confuses him until she winks and makes a thumbs up. He walks out, and the first thing that hits him is the cold, the air conditioning blasting at full force, a luxury his home only knows when they can afford the electricity. The second thing is the silence, not the quiet of his neighborhood at night, which is never truly silent with dogs barking and jeepneys honking in the endless hum of a city that never sleeps. This is a held breath, a collective pause. 1,000 strangers waiting to see if he'll dazzle or disappoint. The spotlight finds him and he squints against its brightness, momentarily blinded when his vision clears. He sees Simon Cowell's face, already set in that familiar expression of world-weary skepticism. The look that says, "Impress me or be destroyed." He sees Heidi Klum's encouraging smile, Sofia Vergara's curious tilt of the head, Howie Mandel's enthusiastic wave, but mostly he sees the camera lens. That means his mother is watching right now, on the other side of the world, probably on her break in the hospital cafeteria, probably with her co-worker, Maria Elena, who promised to stream it for her, probably with her hand pressed to her mouth. The same way Marco's hand is pressed to his now, trying to keep his heart from climbing out of his throat. "Hello," he says, and his voice cracks on the single syllable. The microphone picks it up, broadcasts his fear to 10 million people. Someone in the audience laughs, a nervous titter that makes his cheeks burn. Simon leans forward, elbows on the desk, fingers steeped under his chin. "Take your time," he says, and Marco is shocked by the gentleness. This is not the Simon he's seen on YouTube, not the man who slices through dreams with a British accent, sharp enough to draw blood. This is something else, something that sounds almost like a father. "What's your name, young man?" Marco swallows hard. "Marco Rivera. Sir, from Quezon City, Philippines." Heidi's smile widens. That's a long way from home. "What brings you to our stage?" And here it is. The moment he's rehearsed in the bathroom mirror 47 times, the words he's whispered to himself in the dark when the missing got so bad, it felt like dying. "My mother is a nurse in New York. She hasn't been home for Christmas in 3 years. My father passed away last year. We used to go caroling in our neighborhood, and my mother, she loves this song more than anything. I want to sing it for her so she knows we're waiting and we're proud, and we love her." The words come out in a rush, tumbling over each other, and he realizes he's crying. Tears hot on his cheeks, and he hasn't even started singing yet. The audience makes a sound, not quite a gasp, not quite a sigh, but something softer, something wounded. Howie Mandel reaches for a tissue and blows his nose loudly, earning a laugh that breaks the tension. Sophia's hand is over her heart. Heidi is already dabbing at her eyes. Simon hasn't moved, hasn't changed expression, but something in his eyes has shifted. A curtain drawn back to reveal a sadness Marco recognizes. "Because he lives with it every day. What's the song, Marco?" Simon asks, and his voice has that gravelly quality it gets when he's trying not to show too much. "Kumukutikutitap," Marco says, and the word feels strange in his mouth here, so far from the streets where it belongs. It's about Christmas lights, about finding hope in the dark. Simon nods slowly. "Show us," he says, and it's a command, but also a request, a plea almost, as if this man who has everything needs to be reminded of what hope looks like. when it comes from a place that has every reason to have given up. Marco closes his eyes, and when he does, he's not in Los Angeles anymore. He's on his front steps in Quezon City. It's December 23rd. The air smells of lechon and garlic rice from Lola Corazon's kitchen. His father is strumming the guitar with fingers that are too thick for the strings, but somehow make them sing anyway. His mother is harmonizing in a voice so clear it could wash away sin. And Amara is dancing barefoot on the concrete, her nightgown swirling around her ankles. He can hear them, all of them together, whole home. He opens his mouth and the first notes come out, a cappella, because that's how the carolers always start finding their pitch. In the dark before the guitars joined in, Kumukutikutitap at bumiyu busilik, the words leap from him, buoyant and bright despite the ache behind them. And for a moment there is only his voice, pure and sweet and impossibly strong, filling the theater with a language most of the audience doesn't speak, but somehow instantly understands. The note holds suspended in the cold air, and Simon Cowell's hand moves from his chin to his mouth, covering it as if to hold in a sound he doesn't want to make public. Heidi Klum's tears are flowing freely now, creating dark rivers down her perfectly contoured cheeks. Sofia Vergara is leaning so far forward, she's practically lying on the judge's desk, her coffee forgotten, her eyes wide and glistening. Howie Mandel stands. But it's not the enthusiastic pop-up he usually does. It's slower, reverent, his hands pressed together like he's praying. The house band, who've been given a simple chord chart, come in on the second verse. But they play with such delicate restraint it's almost invisible. Just a whisper of strings underneath Marco's voice. He sings about lights twinkling in the night, about hearts beating in rhythm with hope, about Christmas coming regardless of who is missing from the table. His voice gains strength with every word, as if the song itself is a rope he's climbing, pulling himself up from the pit of missing them, of missing all of them, of missing the life he used to have. When he reaches the chorus, siklab at mabuhay ang mang-atalas ang langit, his voice breaks on the high note. But it's not a crack of failure. It's a fissure of pure emotion. And the audience feels it like a physical wound, a collective gasp rising from their throats. Simon Cowell is crying now openly, not dabbing elegantly, but letting tears fall where they may, his chest heaving with silent sobs. This is a man who lost his own mother not long ago, who understands the particular shape of grief that comes from loving someone who can no longer hear your voice. And here is this child, this stranger from across the world, singing directly into that wound, with a voice that somehow heals and hurts at the same time. But the real shock comes mid-song, when the stage lights that have been focused solely on Marco begin to spread to warm, to seek out the source of a small harmony that's been building. From the front row, the cameras find Amara, tiny Amara in her best dress that's still too big, standing on her chair singing along. Her voice is thin and reedy, a child's voice, but it's perfect, it's pure. It's the missing piece of the harmony that Marco didn't know he needed. Lola Corazon stands beside her, frail but tall, her voice cracked with age but strong with memory, singing the alto line she sang when her own children were small, the three of them separated by death and distance and circumstance. Create a sound so whole it seems impossible that any piece is missing, but they are missing a piece. They are missing Maria, and Marco knows it, feels it in the empty space where her soprano should be, and he sings harder, louder, more beautifully to fill that void with sound. The audience cannot stay seated. They rise in sections like dominoes, falling in reverse until the entire theater is standing, many of them singing along, stumbling over to Gallic words, but getting the melody exactly right, because music, real music, doesn't need translation. A woman in the mezzanine holds up her phone, showing a video call to someone who must be Maria, her face filling the tiny screen, her mouth moving in silent prayer, her own tears, making it hard to see her baby boy become a star in real time. Simon Cowell sees this on the big screen, sees the mother watching from a break room in a New York hospital, sees the exhaustion in her eyes that mirrors Marco's determination, and something snaps inside him. He stands not in the lazy way he sometimes does, but with purpose, with violence almost, his chair scraping back so hard it nearly tips over. He walks to the edge of the judge's platform, closer to the stage than he's allowed to go during performances. But nobody stops him because this is no longer about rules. This is about a mother and son, Separated by the economic realities of a world that demands. Families break themselves apart to survive, and a little boy who refused to accept that as the final answer. Marco reaches the final verse and his voice drops to a whisper again, a secret shared between him and the mother, who is somehow both absent and present. Kumukutikutitap, he breathes, and every light in the theater seems to pulse in response, seems to twinkle in time with his heartbeat. The sound engineer, crying so hard he can barely see his board, brings up the light slowly, bathing the audience in a soft, golden glow that makes them look like stars scattered across the sky. Marco is singing about when the final note comes. It's not big and showy, it's a held hum, a vibration that resonates in the bones of every person in that theater. A sound that contains every Christmas wish Marco has ever made. Every night he's fallen asleep whispering, "I miss you," into a phone call that costs too much. Every morning he's woken up determined to make his mother proud, even if she can't be there to see it. The note fades and the silence that follows is so profound. It feels like the entire world has stopped spinning to listen. Then, Simon Cowell does something that will be replayed on highlight reels until the end of reality television. He doesn't just hit the golden buzzer. He climbs the stairs to the stage, his expensive shoes clacking against the wood, and he takes the microphone from Marco's trembling hands. The boy looks up at him terrified, certain he's about to be told it wasn't enough, that the English version would have been better, that this was too sentimental. But Simon actually kneels on the stage, so he's eye level with this child who has just done the impossible. And he says, "Marco, your mother is watching from New York." Yes. Marco nods, unable to speak through his own tears. "Well," Simon continues, his voice breaking, "she's not going to watch the semifinals from a break room. She's going to watch them from right there." He points to the empty seat between Lola. "Corazon and Amara, we've arranged for her flight to land in 3 hours. She'll be here tomorrow. You're going to the live shows. And your mother is going to see you perform in person." For the first time in 3 years, the theater erupts. But it's not the chaotic scream of a golden buzzer moment. It's a sound of pure collective joy, of 10,000 people witnessing a miracle that has nothing to do with talent and everything to do with love. Heidi Klum has collapsed into Sofia Vergara's arms, both of them crying so hard they can barely breathe. Howie Mandel is literally jumping up and down on the judge's desk, his fists pumping the air, shouting yes. The golden buzzer confetti falls, but it's almost an afterthought, because the real magic is happening on the video call that the production team has patched into the big screen, showing Maria Rivera's face as she processes what Simon has just said. She's on her knees in that hospital break room, her scrub top wrinkled her hair in a messy bun, her hand over her mouth in the same gesture Simon made earlier, and she's screaming, "Marcus, Marcos Anico, my son, my son." And the sound of her voice crackling through the theater speakers becomes the final note of the most beautiful audition the show has ever seen. Marco dissolves into tears, real tears now, the kind he's been holding back for 3 years, because someone had to be strong for Amara and Lola Corazon. He falls to his knees on the stage, the confetti sticking to his wet cheeks, and Amara rushes to him, her tiny arms wrapping around his neck, both of them crying into each other's shoulders. Lola Corazon follows more slowly, her arthritis making the stairs painful, but she makes it, and she enfolds both her grandchildren in an embrace that contains generations of sacrifice and love. Simon Cowell stands back, giving them space, but he's also crying, dabbing his eyes with the sleeve of his expensive suit jacket. And when the cameras find him, he just shakes his head and mouths unbelievable. The audience is on their feet, but many are also on their phones, calling their own mothers, their own children, anyone they've lost touch with, anyone they need to tell "I love you" before another Christmas passes. A man in the third row, a truck driver from Ohio who hasn't spoken to his son in 5 years, is crying so hard he's shaking his phone to his ear saying, "I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. Please come home for Christmas." A woman who immigrated from the Philippines 20 years ago sings along with the chorus that's still looping in her head. Her American-born daughter filming her, finally understanding why her mother cries every time she hears Christmas music. From home, what Christmas tradition means the most to your family? Was there a moment that made you call someone you love? Share your story in the comments below. The aftermath is a blur for Marco and his family there, whisked to the green room where the Wi-Fi password is written on a whiteboard. and within minutes, Maria's face fills an iPad screen smaller than life. But more precious than anything, she's still in her scrubs, still on her break, but her eyes have a light in them that Marco hasn't seen in 3 years. "Anik Ko," she whispers. "You were so beautiful, I'm so proud. I'm coming home, the connection is bad." Her voice pixelated and choppy. But it doesn't matter, they talk over each other. Marco telling her about the plane ride, about the hotel with the soft beds, about Simon Cowell crying, and Maria telling him she loves him. She misses him. She's been dreaming of his voice every night. Lola Corazon takes the iPad and gives her daughter a lecture in rapid Tagalog about working too hard, about forgetting to take her vitamins, about the rash she saw on Maria's neck during the video call. And Marco and Amara laughed through their tears. Because some things transcend continents, mothers worry, grandmothers worry more. And children just need to know they're loved. The judges reconvened during the commercial break, but nobody wants to talk about the other acts. Simon sits with his head in his hands. And when Heidi asks if he's okay, he just shakes his head. "I wasn't ready," he admits, his voice raw. "I spent the whole day dreading another cheesy Christmas act. Another kid singing 'All I Want for Christmas Is You,' off-key, but that was church, that was what Christmas is supposed to be." Sophia nods, her eyes still puffy. "My abuela used to sing those songs to me. I haven't heard them in 30 years. I called her just now, Simon. I called her and I told her I loved her. That boy gave me back my grandmother's voice." Howie, usually the joker, is completely serious. "We get caught up in the competition, the drama, the production value, but that kid just reminded us that the most powerful thing in the world is a family that refuses to be broken by distance." He just sang his mother home. They sit in silence. 4 people who have seen everything show business has to offer. Completely humbled by an 11-year-old who taught them what the holidays actually mean. The video clips go viral before the episode even airs. Someone in the audience leaked the golden buzzer moment, and within hours, #Marco Sings His Mother Home is trending worldwide. Filipino communities across the globe share it with captions in Tagalog, in English, in the hybrid language of immigrants who never feel fully at home. Anywhere this is us, this is our story. The Philippine Embassy in Washington, D.C. posts it with a message about the sacrifices of OFWs, and it gets shared by the President of the Philippines, who invites Marco to perform at Malik Name Palace. Scooter Brown's team reaches out about representation. A record label offers a Christmas album deal, but Marco doesn't care about any of it. He just wants to see his mother. He wants to sit in their small concrete house, the one he now has enough money to fix the roof on, and eat her adobo, and hear her sing the harmony parts that only she knows. He wants to go caroling in their barangay, not as a performer, but as a son, as a brother, as a family finally whole again. The live shows arrive with a speed that leaves everyone breathless. The producers clear Marco's schedule for rehearsals, but he insists on only one practice session. "I know the song," he tells the vocal coach, a Broadway veteran who listens to him once and then just hugs him. "You sing it perfectly. Don't let anyone change a note." They bring in a children's choir from a Filipino community in Los Angeles to back him up, but Marco politely declines. It's a family song, he explains, and so on live show night. The stage is set, simply a stool, a microphone, and 3 chairs. The audience buzzes with anticipation, knowing the story, knowing the payoff, knowing that Marco Rivera is sitting in that front row seat, her hands clasped so tight her knuckles are white, her flight having landed only hours before. She looks younger than Marco remembers. Or maybe he just forgot what she looked like. When she wasn't pixelated and exhausted, she wears a dress she bought at the airport, something simple and blue. And when he walks onto the stage and sees her, he stops singing mid-verse, the microphone dropping from his lips as he stares. The audience holds its breath. The judges lean forward, and then Marco does what every child who has ever missed their mother dreams of doing. He runs across the stage, down the stairs, into the front row, and collapses into her arms. While the audience erupts and the cameras catch the moment, his heart becomes whole again. Simon Cowell doesn't hit the golden buzzer this time. He doesn't need to. Instead, he walks off the judge's platform, joins the Rivera family in the front row, and asks Maria if he can sing with them. The resulting performance of Kumukutikutitap, with Simon Cowell singing the wrong words in a terrible British accent, becomes the most watched moment in AGT history. Not because it's perfect, but because it's perfectly human. Marco goes on to win the competition. But the prize money is almost irrelevant. He's already won what he came for. He's already brought his mother home. If this story of a Filipino boy who sang his mother home for Christmas touched your heart, click the video on your screen to watch another unforgettable AGT moment that proves family is the real prize.